begins to tell from there. My name is Alvin Hussey. I am the Brand Partnerships Director at The Hook. I've worked in youth media for nearly a decade, which makes me feel very old. And I've now worked in social media for about 5 years as well. So when I started, it was in the dark days before Snapchat, Instagram stories, all that jazz. So a lot has happened in those 5 years. And what I want to do today is share some tips and some tricks and some of the things I've been very fortunate to pick up over those years. So, who is The Hook, if you weren't aware of who we are? We're a social first entertainment publisher as well as entertainment brand. We have over 10 million followers across all our different platforms. And how we came about was, all those years ago, we wanted to challenge expectations of what you normally see in your news feed from the third-party viral videos that you tend to see. At The Hook, we focus on original series formats, and that's how we've grown our lovely audience. And we're really proud of the fact that we have a lovely audience of 18 to 35, split right down the middle, 50-50, which is very rare in our industry to have such an even split. So I'm going to share some of the cool standout original formats that we've been working on, and you can have a little. By the way, let me know if you can't hear it. You may have to take the headphones off. So there's going to be quite a few videos, so we'll see how it goes. Good, 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 good. All right. And there we go. So we aim to entertain our fans and cover all aspects of popular culture from, as you can see, whether that's movies, gaming, trending news, etc. And as you can see, all of our content's created in-house. Have an amazing team who work incredibly hard. And because of them, we've created over 15 original formats to date, from original sketches, animations, interviews with the Fab Five from Queer Eye to The Rock. I'm still trying to meet The Rock personally. I haven't quite cracked that yet, but I'd love to meet the man. So that's the kind of cool stuff that we want to get involved in every single day. That's the type of content that we get passionate about at The Hook. And recently we've entered the podcast space with The Breakdown. Again, if you're a fan of podcasts, check it out. I'm going to do a little plug there. It's been featured by Apple, and it's hosted by the fantastic Jamali Maddox. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. Actually, put your hands up if any of you watch Hate Thy Neighbor on Viceland. Cool. Well, if you get the chance, really funny. He meets the most racist people around the world. So real family-friendly stuff. But here's a little teaser just to show you some of the cool stuff he's helped us with.
I've narrowed down what I look like in every race that everybody hates. What makes you the guy who's like, I'm going to do it?
Always had a feeling that I was meant to be doing something.
I had tears in my eyes when this filming it.
I want to be Fresh Prince.
You want to be Fresh Prince?
You didn't want to be Will Smith?
Nah, I went.
But it took me Chuck B.
Yeah.
I've been tatting for 5 minutes and he was just like, you can tattoo my whole head if you want.
People were coming in and getting selfies of like a water bottle. And that's when I started going, fuck, people like Love Island.
So yeah, one last plug, check it out, have a listen, let us know what you think. So, about my particular role at The Hook. So last year, we launched The Hook Labs, which is our now award-winning in-house content studio, because the idea behind that was to help brands and agencies help achieve the similar success on social platforms as we have. And I guess we take for granted at The Hook that every day we're creating original content. We've got skin in the game, so to speak. So every day we're learning what works, what doesn't work, and we want to pass those learnings to our clients. So here's a little video of some of the cool branded content we've done, and there'll be a few of those that I'm going to delve into a bit more detail later on. Billy's adorable in real life, by the way. He's got very cute little red shoes on. He's lovely. So we've worked with some really great clients, as you can see, everyone from entertainment to beyond. And we've helped all these different brands in different ways. And because of the great support that we've had from them, we've won some awards. One last plug, by the way, for The Hook. We've won lots of awards, which is really happy with, including in-house content studio, as well as a lot of those awards were for our Jigsaw campaign, which I'm going to delve into a bit more detail about why it worked really well, and actually some of the background behind it. So hopefully you can learn from that as well. So enough of the plugs. How to create, I guess for us, what I want to talk through is how to stand out using original video and social. So what I want to talk through is a lot of the concepts are from a book called Contagious by Jonah Berger. I don't know if any of you have read it. It's a really great book. We've, at The Hook, every day we always get asked by a lot of our clients, how can we make our social video really perform really well? And for quite a while, we were struggling to kind of articulate that in the right way. Unfortunately, the book helped massively. So I'm going to go through the main principles of that. And I think what you need to all think about here, if you want to create video for social platforms, the amazing thing about social platforms is you can encourage your target audience to share ads, which is amazing. However, to do that, there's certain things you need to bear in mind. A lot of it comes down to psychology. It comes down to why people share content. So, for example, the first principle is social currency. Again, it's all about why you share posts on your, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether you send something to your mum on WhatsApp. I think you have to remember, why did you share something? One key element behind that is because you want to, it aligns with the perception of what you want other people to think of you as. So you may share a heartwarming post, a hilarious sketch, because you want people, subconsciously or consciously, you want people to think how hilarious you are. So there's a great example here. I'm sure everyone has seen the Chewbacca mask lady. Yes. She probably had no idea that she's going to become a mega viral star. I think it was about 2 years ago. 60 million views, one of the most viewed Facebook Lives of all time. And that came to the fact that people, as soon as it became big, people shared it because they wanted to be involved in that. And again, that plays into, again, how to improve your social currency. The other aspect, number 2, is triggers. Again, I think when it comes to any form of digital marketing, I think it's really easy to get swept up in the numbers. You know, you think of 10 million views, 5 million views, 10,000 click-throughs, all that. But at the end of the day, you need to think about the individual person. And with that, you need to think about what is happening to that individual at that time, at that place, when they are consuming your content. So at The Hook, we try and focus on creating relatable sketches. So for example, we've created sketches around Christmas, Black Friday, Halloween, and we think about what's going to resonate with that audience. And again, if you tap into the right trigger, that person will feel compelled to share your content. So I've got a great example here of the fantastic video of Rebecca Black, Friday. I'm not going to play this song because it's one of the worst songs of all time. Again, huge. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all. one of the worst songs of all time, got over 120 million views on YouTube alone and increasing. And actually, every week it increases. I'll give you one guess what day of the week it happens to increase. At The Hook, we have a team who every Friday at 4 p.m. they play this song. Every Friday. And third, evoke emotion. Again, really important here. People will share based on how they feel, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a super positive emotion. It could be sadness, it could be anger, it could be awe, it could be laughter. Again, think about the emotion that you want to encourage. What's going to fit your brand? What's going to fit your campaign? Again, at The Hook, that's what we always think about all the time. And I guess something that I'm always aware of, often working in social media, is there's a lot of headline talk, not always very positive about social media. There's a lot of negativity about the toxicity of social media, about how people become addicted to the dopamine-like effects that you have from viral videos. And really at The Hook, that's not what we want to be involved in. We want to focus on creating quality video content that actually has a long-lasting impression. That's what we want to be a part of at The Hook. And there's some lovely reactions to show emotion, but again, it's all about how you tap into those emotional states. And then fourth, narrative. Again, very obvious, but it's how you tell a story. People share stories. They don't share information, they share stories. Since the dawn of time, that's how people shared morals, lessons, was through stories. You know, fairy tales, all that sort of jazz. And again, the important thing we always think about The Hook, and what you should always think about, is how do you integrate your brand into a narrative where people feel compelled to find out what happens next, but still the brand is such an integral part of that narrative that they'd want to share it, and the brand is so ingrained in that story. So again, that's what we think about The Hook. Great timing. The Lego movie is going to be streamed for free on YouTube on Friday. That's basically a 2-hour ad for Lego. I appreciate not everyone's going to have the budget to do a huge 2-hour film to promote their product, and I imagine they sold a hell of a lot of Lego sets on the basis of this. That's an extreme example, but again, think about the narrative. Think about why people will share your story. And then lastly, again, we always think about The Hook, we try and be original. It's about challenge expectations. How do you stand out from all these different social platforms, all the content out there, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter? How do you stand out? How do you stand out from all that content? How do you stand out from what your competitors are doing? And for that, it's about actually challenge expectations. Every day, I have meetings where a client will say to me, Alvin, our target audience think of us like this. We don't want to be thought of like that. That's a preconception. We want to be thought of as X. So it's how do you challenge that in the right way? So I'm going to show next, as we're nearing Christmas, which feels surreal, I'm going to show my favorite Christmas ad of all time, which I think truly nails these principles really well. It's an ad by a Polish, I guess the Polish version of eBay called Allegro. So yeah, check it out. So that video got, I believe, over 100 million views. I have a bit of a soft spot for it because I got married this year to a lovely Polish girl, so I like to think I'm half Polish anyway. His English is much, much better than my Polish. So, but again, it really taps into those principles I talked about. I shared that straight away when I saw it because I thought it was really heartwarming. So I felt it in a way it increased my social currency, even if I wasn't thinking about it consciously. Again, triggers, again, plays into a few different triggers there. Learning a different language. Obviously, the Christmas angle plays into that as well. Again, emotion, I mean, I don't really need to tell you about that side of things. And the narrative, a really strong narrative. So, again, I mean, lots of Christmas ads do this, and I think it's a really important way for brands to be associated. But that's just something to bear in mind. So I think that's a really great example. So I'm going to go into one of our campaigns that we did, that I was actually personally involved in for the film Jigsaw. But actually, before I go into too much detail about it, put your hand up if you haven't seen a Saw film before. Oh wow, quite a few. Okay, I did that question in Amsterdam last month, and everyone had seen a Saw film, so I was quite surprised by that. So, if you're not familiar with the film, lovely story. A chap called John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, played by Tobin Bell. He is although he doesn't call himself, he's basically a killer who decides to challenge people's whether they deserve to live or not with quite ingenious traps. So real lovely stuff. And it was interesting because Lionsgate, who are the studio behind it, they've been one of our clients for a very long time now. And they approached us and said, look, we have a really interesting challenge here because we really want to take back Halloween because it's the first Saw film in 7 years. Now, when I was growing up, I remember a Saw film coming out every year, every 2 years, Halloween as standard. So it's a really interesting challenge. And again, the campaign worked very, really well. We were able to dominate social media conversation about the film, won some awards. So I'm going to show you a little video about it and then just delve into a bit more detail about how we came up with it, really. And yeah, and then hopefully impart some lessons and some tips and tricks that we picked up along the way. So here's a little video. I feel like the teacher who rolls out the VCR. Oh, thank you.
Hello, the Hook followers. Are you ready to play a game? Let the game begin.
So the Hook have invited me down to check out some cool, scary experience. They won't tell me exactly what it is.
Is it doing something with me?
Hello, Johanna. Do you realize what you've done?
That music is terrifying. So as you can see from there, for the non-Saw fans in the audience, one of the most iconic elements of the film is that little puppet named Billy. And we were really fortunate to secure the official Billy the Puppets from the film, as well as Tobin Bell, the actor himself. So I'm going to go through to our thinking about how that all came about. So I guess there's really 4 parts about this campaign, and I guess really any campaign we do at The Hook. And really it comes down to strategy, production, distribution, and evaluation. And these are, whenever we do any campaign, I don't know why I stood up there like I'm from Westlife, but it is what it is. So these are kind of the four key elements that we think about. So again, strategy. So we're in the locker room, we want to win the game. What do we do? So the first thing we think about is KPIs. What is the point of the campaign? Why are you doing it? Now, again, I often get a lot of my clients say to me, Alvin, we want to go viral. We want to get loads of engagement. What does that mean? What is the point? Are you trying to drive sales? Is it acquisition? Is it about reach? Is it about awareness? For Lionsgate, the key thing for them is all about eyeballs. It's all about getting people aware of the film. It came out last October, perfect time around Halloween. How to drive people to watch that at Halloween rather than any other horror film. Secondly, again, very obvious here, but target audience. And what I mean by that is not just millennials or Gen Z. It needs to be more than that. What are you doing for that audience at that point, at that place? Who is the audience? Now, with Jigsaw, it's an interesting challenge they had because the target audience for horror films tend to be 18 to 25. And as you can imagine, those 18 and 25-year-olds would have been probably too young to got swept in all the excitement when the first Saw. I mean, I was 18 when the first Saw came out, and I'm definitely older than 25, so it's been a while. So again, it's an interesting challenge. And then thirdly, we think about data at the hook. So again, there's a wealth of data you can find. We use third-party tools, and I'm happy to talk through it in a bit more detail. If you want to grab me after this, I'm happy to share some of the tools that we use. There's so much you can find out. Again, the one key thing I would stress is not to get swept up by data. You still need some form of creative hook. You still need that emotional pull. You need to think again about the narrative, the emotions, the triggers, the social currency angle. With us, we did research and we saw that actually in the Saw films, it wasn't the traps. It wasn't even Jigsaw himself. The most iconic element was Billy the Puppet. So we realized that we needed him, I say him, it, to really make the campaign shine and really stand out from all the other campaigns that were happening last year. Now, bear with me. We've come up with a lovely acronym at the hook to keep when we think about strategy. And it is FISTY. It's going to be interesting. I'll have to bend down every time. So, it stands for, as you can imagine, Facebook, Instagram, stories. That could be Snapchat or Instagram, Twitter or YouTube. And again, with the hook, we always bear this in mind from the very first start of the campaign and with our own original content as well. We think about these platforms, where we're going to distribute the content. Think about how an individual uses those platforms for different reasons. How we all use those platforms for different means. So, for example, with some of our campaigns, or for your campaigns, you may want to do a 3 or 4 minute video on Facebook, maybe a really cool behind the scenes content with polls using Instagram stories, and then maybe a long form series on YouTube. It's just thinking about, again, why people use those different platforms. Again, I've seen numerous years, lots of advertisers, lots of clients say to me, we've got an amazing video, and I think, well, hang on, you've made it for YouTube. It's not going to work on Facebook, or vice versa. You need to think about those platforms. Think about those individuals and why they're using those platforms. So we always remember FISTY is what we like to think of and remember at the hook. There we go. Right, now production. Again, let's say, again, grab me after if you want to know a bit more detail about how we actually made it. But I guess what I want to talk about is you've made it, brilliant. Think about how you're going to optimize it for those platforms. And again, this all seems very obvious, but again, we always think about this for every video we put out on the hook. So I'm going to play you a little bit of one of our key videos and talk you through the different elements. He says. There we go.
Alright guys, so the hook have invited me down to check out some cool, scary experience. They won't tell me exactly what it is.
Hook have invited me into the vaults of Waterloo for the new Jigsaw movie, and I do apologise.
going to stop right there, and I can tell you're all intrigued to see what happens next, so it worked. So, again, when we came up with this campaign, there's a few things that came in mind. Before I go into those details of production, we think about the emotional side of things. Again, when it comes to horror, you have to imagine there's multiple emotions that go into it. You're on a roller coaster whenever you think about horror. There's the shock, and there's normally the kind of nervous laughter once you realise you got scared. And that's why we know horror and comedy are interlinked. And now those are the emotions we tapped into it. So for this campaign, we tried to keep the similar horror motifs, as you can see with the very dark area. We used Waterloo Vaults to film that. But we used the comedy tone, because we know that works incredibly well with social. We've had, at The Hook, we've worked on numerous horror films. We've had about experience of working on over 50 films, so we knew how to tap into those emotions. So, as you can see with the elements I looked at here, you've got the thumbnail. Again, you've got to think about, you have seconds to make an impression on social media, whether that's on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be. You have very little time to make that initial impression. You need to hook them in. So as you can see very quickly, this intrigues you. You're wondering what's about to happen. Think about subtitles. As you saw in that video, we had subtitles there. Bearing in mind, again, your audience are going to be watching on the go. If sound is a really important part of the video, there's ways of encouraging to turn sound on. Again, if you really hook them in, you'll notice views with sound on should massively increase. And then a call to action. As you saw at the very beginning of that video, it's very clear it's about Jigsaw, it's related to the film. At the end of the video, there's a call to action to tell people it's out in cinema. So again, think about what the call to action is and make that clear in the narrative in some way, shape or form. There's obviously the challenge is how do you integrate that in. So again, just think about that. Now, as you noticed in that video, we had two comedic influencers. They do lots of funny pranks, and they were perfect for the campaign, absolutely perfect. With The Hook, we often use talent for our different campaigns. Now, I personally wouldn't necessarily recommend a big social influencer for every campaign. You don't necessarily need someone who has 20 million followers on Facebook or a million subscribers on YouTube. It's actually more about whether that talent is going to align with your brand values, and is it going to help evoke that emotion, be part of that narrative? Is it really going to work? So we've worked with some amazing talent, from major actors to award-winning Edinburgh Fringe award winners. But I've got a really great example here of a campaign we did in the summer for Curry's PC World, which was with JBL. And the idea of the campaign was to promote their range of audio products. So you worked with different influencers to match their different products, and one in particular really stood out.
Hi, I'm Hoshi, and this is our headphones changing. Hi, I'm Hoshi, and this is our headphones changing. Spot one. Okay. Hi guys, I'm Hoshi, and this is our headphones changing my life. I was actually on a program 5 years ago called Educate Yorkshire.
Nice and loud, nice and proud.
The show basically showed a kid that overcame a speaking problem with the help of his English teacher.
Have you got your phone with you?
No.
Right, just plug it into mine, I'll put it on. Right, you ready?
No, that's
Go for it. 1, 2, 3.
the moment when after many years of hard work and a long voyage is the same moment when the trees are loose.
At the age of 5, due to an asthma attack, I got told by my doctor that I'd never able to actually speak ever again.
Hated it in this because unfortunately some people bully them.
As a kid, I'd say it was quite difficult in order to try and approach people and really accept it within myself that I did actually have a speaking problem and I did really need that sort of help.
Just getting purely from the King's Speech though, where his Lionel Logue suggests listening to the headphones, and then he goes from there, and then the King can speak.
And I put those headphones on and I became myself actually talking. It allowed me to understand that even though people weren't listening, I just kept imagining myself that not a single one of them is basically listening at all. And I've just got headphones on and I'm just even kids in the school who I didn't even know were there to approach me and urge me to try something different and talk.
I want to actually thank Mr. Byrne for helping me overcome my stomach.
Good afternoon, sir. That's not one of those. Good to see you. You well?
Yeah, good. You alright?
Very well, thank you.
Hearing those headphones for the first time and actually hearing myself, like you said, it's not only me overcoming the speaking problem. You actually heard my accent for the first time.
I just felt like I was sort of bowled over, like really. Just inside a headphones, sort of putting them on and blocking out the rest of the world and giving him the opportunity to just channel his thoughts into one thing. It's just mind blowing to think that works really.
It does feel like I was
So Mushy, he's not a massive social influencer. He doesn't really have a social media profile at all. But he had a really strong emotional story that really engaged with our audience. And even if you weren't aware of the story, you weren't aware of Mushy before, if you hadn't seen Educate in Yorkshire, an incredibly powerful story. And again, we saw that our audience shared it and really emotionally interacted with the content. So again, that's a great example of you don't necessarily need a major influencer. I mean, that was the hero of the campaign. As part of that campaign, we also worked with Chris and Ken from Love Island, who are much, much bigger fan bases. And by far, Mushy was the star. So bear that in mind. I think sometimes when it comes to your campaigns, think about, don't just think, right, we need an influencer. We need someone who's got 1 million followers. Think about, are they actually going to help build that story? Are they going to help, like I said before, are they going to drive people to want to share it because it improves their social currency? It's an emotional story, it's a narrative, or it's some sort of trigger. There we go. So, you've created this amazing content, awesome, really cool. Now, that doesn't really matter if it's not being seen. So how do you distribute it? Again, you can work with all sorts of different partners, different pages. At The Hook, we help our clients with a distribution strategy based on what is going to be the most effective platform. Again, I'm actually curious about this. Put your hand up if any of you have used A/B testing at all when it comes to social video. Okay. Well, for those who haven't, basically what it is, it's very simple to use. Using platforms like Facebook, like Instagram, you're able to, and again, grab me after this if you want to know a little bit more detail. But basically, you can show different versions of your video to a very small proportion of your target audience. So it allows you to test different video lengths, different thumbnails. So again, at The Hook, we use it all the time, really, to help us decide on what is going to be the best version of that video to go out. So with a Jigsaw campaign, we're able to ascertain that, right, that thumbnail, that heading, that text is going to work the best. It's something I would highly recommend. Again, I'm more than happy, if you want to grab me after this, I'll be happy to go into the real nitty-gritty details about how to do it. And again, the other thing to bear in mind is the ad platforms. All these social media platforms, some more than others, have got really great advertising tools. You can really delve into detail about the target audience. You can really target with your video content. At The Hook, actually, with that Curry's PC World campaign, we did something slightly differently where we retargeted people who engaged with those videos with a cut-down version directly from the talent involved. And it's more of a direct sales tool, telling them about the product. So with Mushy, for example, he basically thanked people for watching the video and just telling them more about the product. And we found that's worked incredibly well. By using the ad platforms, you're really able to really target the people who are more likely to, who love your brand message. So think about that. I'd recommend it for any campaign you do. Think about how best you're going to use those ad platforms. My piece of advice is, think about how you scroll through your newsfeed, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook. You're much more likely to click on a video if it's already very popular, if it's already got 1 million views, 100,000 views, whatever you want to say it, versus a video that's got 5 views. So think about that. Before you put pay spend behind anything, it needs to be a powerful, successful video. We're all social animals at the end of the day. We all bounce off each other. We're more likely to watch something if other people have. Right. And the fun stuff, evaluating results. So at The Hook, there's lots of ways we evaluate our campaigns. We use first-party data from the platforms themselves. Again, there's a huge amount of data. Again, I just want to warn, don't drown in the quicksand of data. It's so easy to get bogged down by numbers galore. Again, think about your KPIs, think about what's important. Is it view-through rates? Is it engagements? Think about your KPIs and why you're doing it. And then secondly, benchmarking. Again, don't just think about what's happening on your platform with your brand. We at The Hook, we use third-party platforms such as Tubular Labs or CrowdTangle, and they allowed us to benchmark what we do against other similar campaigns about our competitors. So for Jigsaw, we're able to compare ourselves to other movie campaigns, other horror campaigns. And again, if you want to know a bit more information, I'm more than happy to introduce you to the team, the different teams. Really great platforms. They really help us understand how our campaigns perform. And then firstly, sentiment analysis. So again, really powerful. The great thing about social platforms compared to other forms of media is really quickly you can work out whether people love or hate your video. You can tell very quickly, and you're able to see that in comments. And I always think to myself, when was the last time I commented on social? Forget even video. Think about the last time you commented on your friend's post. You felt compelled to do that. That's a really powerful thing to analyze. So we have an amazing head of data strategy at The Hook who meticulously has loads of tools to analyze sentiment. So we want to know, actually, did people care? So with the Jigsaw campaign, we were to analyze, did people notice about the film? Were people excited about seeing the film? Were people quoting lines from the video? Again, more than happy to talk through that in a bit more detail at a later stage. But again, I think it's a really powerful way to work out whether your campaign succeeded or failed. So how did the Jigsaw campaign do? Well, you know, it did pretty well. I mean, I wouldn't be here talking about it if it hadn't. And really fortunate. Yeah, got huge reach, 6.1 million reach, 5.2 million views, 150,000 engagements, so reaction, shares, and comments. And for me personally, I was really humbled. If you told 18-year-old Alvin all those years ago after he watched the first Saw that he'd be involved in a campaign like that with Tobin Bell himself, and me being involved in, you know, writing lines for him to say, I would have been pretty surprised. So really honoured to run an amazing campaign. Really, we've been recognised by awards. So it's, yeah, just amazing work by the team at The Hook. And I really think actually it's a testament to really how collaborative we were with the client, with Lionsgate, and how brave they were willing to be to push boundaries. Normally with film promotion, it tends to be a trailer. Lionsgate are really keen to do more than that, to really push the boundaries, to give us access to Billy the Puppet, to give us access to Tobin Bell himself to record lines. I don't know if any of you get involved in movie promotion, but actually getting talent to do anything for marketing is actually a lot more challenging than you think. So again, yeah, really amazing campaign, and one of our best campaigns we've worked on here at The Hook. So what's next? That's my lovely team there. That's me in the middle, as you can tell. So what's next for The Hook? So this year there's been a lot of developments in social video, as you can tell. You've got obviously launch of Facebook Watch, YouTube Premium, making a big play there, and obviously IGTV. So at The Hook, we have been commissioning pilots and longer form series for all those different platforms, because we know that, and again, you've probably heard lots of talks, lots of news over the last few years, there's an audience of people who are hungry for original video on platforms. That's where, even forget this, platforms like Netflix, you know, people are hungry for video. And that's what that's what genuinely excites me, is the fact that we're able to get involved in doing really cool series, all sorts of types of formats that we're working on. So yeah, if you want to add me on LinkedIn or follow me, I'll be happy to tell you more about them. But that's the real next step of what we're doing at The Hook. So we're really excited about the next steps, really. So the key takeaways, this is going to be interesting. I have to bend down every time, but there we are. So the key takeaways. So again, remember social currency. Think about why people share videos or posts. They do it for a reason. People don't just share posts because they feel like it. There's a reason behind it. They want to They share a post because it aligns with the identity they want to portray to their friends, their family, their connections. Again, think about the triggers. Think about what that individual target audience is going through. Is it related to, what's happening on a daily basis? Could it be related to a topical event? So, whether that's the next big royal family news or whatever it may be, think about the triggers that's happening towards your audience and how you can capitalize on that. Again, think about the emotion you're trying to tap into it. Think about how you can really evoke that strong feeling. People are compelled to share content on social platforms because they feel compelled to do it. Even outside of social platforms, we tell stories. We feel compelled to share those stories because they drove an emotional reaction from us. And again, wrap it all up in a... There we go, hang on, there we are. Wrap it all into a narrative. Think about the story. Think about how you can integrate your brand in this story. Think about how you can compel people to fight. They want to carry on tuned in. They want to find out what happens next. Good old Fisty, optimize your Fisty. Think about the platforms. Again, just think about think about how people consume those platforms for different purposes. And if you do use influencers and talent, again, like I said before, is it going to help you with those different elements? If it is, fantastic. Think about how those talent can help you with those aspects. And learn from results. Again, that's really important. And again, the great thing about social video is you don't necessarily need a huge budget to learn. You can post video very quickly. We all have iPhones, we all have smartphones. You can record video, you can post. Learn from it. Learn what worked, what didn't work. And just bear that in mind. And again, what I think at The Hook, what we always tell our clients and what I'd like to, for all of you to take away is think about being brave with your content. Be remembered. Think about how you can push boundaries with what you're doing. It's not always easy. I totally appreciate that. There's lots of reasons why it isn't. But that's how you're going to really succeed on social video. That's how you're going to stand out. That's how we at The Hook, we have to stand out from other people in our space, and that's how you can all stand out, is think about how you can do things differently, do things originally. And hang on one second, and that's me. So, if you want to add me on LinkedIn, go for it. I just came out of this, I don't know if you can see that. There are only 2 Alvin Hussies on LinkedIn in the world, not the one from Canada. So you should have a good chance of finding me. Otherwise, you've got a 50-50 shot of hitting the right one. So there we are. So that's The Hook, that's me. Has anyone got any questions? Because I feel like I'm bored of hearing my own voice. So has anyone got any questions or anything at all? Oh, I'll do this now, cool.
If you're creating video for your business, how long would you recommend it should be?
Good question. That's a really good question. I actually had a meeting this morning with an agency of mine, and they asked me the exact same question, is how long is a video? Do you know what's really interesting? For a long time, I've had a lot of people say it needs to be short, it needs to be snappy. It should be no longer than a minute. I think it varies. It depends on what the point of the video is, to be completely frank. What's the narrative? So, for example, we did a video recently in the last few weeks with Benedict Cumberbatch, where he did an acting masterclass on how you can act if you get really rubbish Christmas presents. And that video, relatively long, we posted on our Facebook page. It's about 4 minutes long, which is actually relatively long for Facebook. One of our most successful videos in the last few weeks, because again, it told that narrative. People were compelled to carry on watching it. So again, I think it depends on, again, think about Fisty, think about the platform, think about the narrative and what the point of it is. Again, it's going to vary. Again, think about A/B testing. You can test different versions. At The Hook, we think about, we do videos that vary from 60 seconds to, 3 or 4 minutes. It just depends. It really massively depends. I mean, for example, a couple of years ago, we were involved in a trailer distribution for a film for Sony. And at the time, they gave us a very long YouTube version of the trailer. We cut it down to 30 seconds, got 16 times more views than they did. And that's down to the fact that we were able to really narrow down what the core of the film was. I mean, it's not, it's not a very highbrow film. It's The Shallows. It's Blake Lively versus a shark. I've pretty much summed up the entire film. But in the original trailer, there's a whole talk about, you know, her talking to her sister on Skype, and you know, there's a lot of great detail. Don't get me wrong. But actually, when we did some tests, we actually saw people didn't really care about that. People wanted shark, Blake Lively, action, and that's what reacted. So I think, unfortunately, I haven't really answered your question, but I think it's going to depend on really what you're looking to achieve. Anyone else? Oh, brilliant. Oh. Johnny, would you mind passing that over?
Hiya. I know you said just with video, just go and do it and start doing it. We actually do event production, so we're going to start doing a lot more of, you know, so we're a little in a different world. But you know, there's a whole thing about you can do it on your phone, or you can get a GoPro, or you can get. Is there like a small? What would you recommend if you just want to get going and you don't have a massive production team, but you just want to start filming stuff? Do you have a recommendation of what kit? I suppose it's like what to start with.
Yeah, because it's an interesting one at Hook. So we've got 35 people in the company, and when we started doing the Hook, there was only, when we started doing original video, we had a very small video team, a very small production team, literally a handful of people. So I wouldn't be, unfortunately, I'm not really the man to tell you the type of kit, what exact cameras you should get. Again, you know, send me a message and I'll ask my team. Again, if you remember that Chewbacca mask lady, you know, it's a normal person. She's recorded it on her phone. So I think it comes down, it's not necessarily the high production values, or it's not necessarily about, you know, the high equipment. It's actually just whether there's a strong story. And no pun intended, if there's a strong hook, to be completely frank. So I think that's the challenging part. And depending on what your story is and what it is, that's when you can look at what the production value should be, what platform you should do. It may be a situation where you want to go quite high production. So with the Jigsaw one, as you can see, we wanted that to look quite slick. We filmed that down in Waterloo Vaults. We had to work with some freelancers to get the really good lighting in there, because as you can appreciate, the lighting down there is absolutely rubbish. So I think it's a tricky one, because we've basically been able to grow our production team quite organically, and they've had to learn from experience. But I think the key thing is just to try out things as much as possible, and just see what works. And I appreciate that's tricky, because it's easy for me to say that because we're a publisher, so we can do that every day. But it's just trying to work out, yeah, it's just mainly trial and error. Hopefully that's answered your question. Anyone else? Oh, brilliant.
Hi. In terms of your commercial model, how do you charge your clients? Like, what is it based on, and what percentage of that goes into a paid media versus like production or branded content costs?
Yeah, so it varies depending on what the point of the campaign is. Often, because we're mainly social video, a lot of the time it's based on views and reach. So we normally do it as a complete package cost per view. And that includes the production, the talent, that sort of thing. But it can vary massively. I mean, we've just started working on mobile gaming apps recently. They care more about performance. We've just finished up, or about to finish, a campaign with Voxy, which is the millennial arm of Vodafone. And that was all acquisition led. So for them, it's about SIM card acquisitions. So do you know what? It really does vary. I think it really comes down to the KPIs and what the client wants to get out of it. But typically, we tend to do packages that relate to what they're after, to be frank. But it varies massively. It depends on really what the scale of it is. You know, we've worked on big campaigns, worked on slightly smaller ones. It just depends on really what the point of it is. And then that's when we were looking to, great, well, you know, we want to make it really big. We want to work with this type of talent. We want to do series. We want to do a one-off. We price it in different ways. Sorry, I didn't mean to waffle there, but it's, hopefully that answered your question. Anyone else? Cool. I think that's it. Brilliant. Well, just, you know, if you want to grab me after this, or, you know, add me on LinkedIn, tweet me or whatever, then that'd be cool.